Okay, so I guess everyone is here. So I'll just let everyone in, and then maybe I think when people come in, may I ask Jack to help me, like, allow them in inside the room whenever people like start coming in. Yep.
Just before you let people in, to make clear, I don't think I don't have permission to. Oh, I do now. Don't worry, it's okay. I found it.
Okay. 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 Great. So everyone, okay? May I start? May I let people in? Okay. Okay, I think everyone is coming in. Okay, I will be, okay, I think some of the Lebanese members here, and I will make the Lebanese member as a co-host as well. Yep, and I think that should be good enough. Whenever there's a new member coming in, I think we can have them joining in. So thank you very much, everyone. I would like to start with share screening. Okay. I think I can do share screening from here. Yep. I think everything is ready. Just a second. Okay. There's a bit of a okay, can everyone see my screen? Not yet. Okay. Okay, so I hope everyone can see my screen, yeah? Slideshow. Okay, I think some more new people for today's audiences will be joining soon as well. But I guess we would like to start first, and we will be able to actually share the recording as well later on if needed for people who can only stay for maybe like half of the event or so. So in that case, do please request as well. So first of all, thank you very much for all of the audiences who have registered to this seminar today, and we'll be grateful and we will welcome everyone to this UK and Japan ecosystem connection online seminar. So before starting into main points, I would like to share about today's agenda. So for today's agenda, we would like to start from introduction from Lebanese side. Maybe I think for some of the members, it might be new to learn about what Lebanese is, why we are actually doing this session itself. And then followed by a keynote presentation by Tech Nation, Mr. Max. And then we'll have panel session from very interesting players, key ecosystem players, startup ecosystem players from both Japan and UK side as well. And then finally, with that, we'll be ending the event after that as well. So with further no wait, I would like to move into the introduction part of Lebanese. So as an introduction of, before going into introduction of Lebanese, I'd like to also do an introduction about myself as well. So my name is Michael. Everyone just call me Michael today. And then I'm currently a president of Lebanese UK, as well as director of Lebanese Singapore. So I'm actually connecting from Singapore today, and I'm usually based in Singapore. But in terms of myself, I actually have studied in UK, but did both bachelor's and master's in UK in UCL. I was more in evolutionary anthropology and zoology side, so that's like a study of animals when I was back in UK. And then now I'm actually working in Singapore as well. And before that, I was in Japan, Lebanese headquarters side. So with that, I'd like to actually explain about what LeaveNest is. So LeaveNest is a cutting edge science communication company from Japan, and we have a vision of advancing science and technology for global happiness. So basically, we are a company that actually wants to do something good for the world using science and technology. And interestingly, we are a Japanese company, but we actually operate across the world. As you can see on the right side of the map, we have offices in Singapore, Malaysia, and Philippines, and we actually have local members here. And then we also have offices in UK and US as well, which we actually operate in remotely as well. And in fact, in Japan, we have a headquarter both in Tokyo and Osaka, and around roughly 80 members. And one interesting uniqueness that LeaveNest has that we are a group of researchers. So basically, we are comprised of members who has master's or PhD degree holder in different kinds of backgrounds. So we have agri-tech, biotech, or maybe psychology, all sorts of people with different research background, with different diversities are actually accumulated in LeaveNest. And what we want to do is we actually want to become a science bridge communicator who connects different communities of people using our knowledge and the understanding of science and technology, and helping them to bridge around and understand about the technology side as well as those kind of differences in knowledge gap that occurs between the communities as well. And we help them to bridge around and help them to work together and hoping to solve, create new knowledge that actually can solve issues in the world. So with that, we are actually working on many extensive projects related to science and technology, mainly in big four areas from education, research development, human resource development, as well as entrepreneurs, which is more of the main topic that we will be talking about today. And we are creating new kinds of projects, more than 200 projects every year from our side as a LeaveNest group. And from here, I'd like to actually move on to an introduction about why actually we are doing this seminar today. And to start with, maybe I'll actually start from explaining why we actually have LeaveNest UK in the first place. So having said that, I've actually studied in UK as well. I always was interested in setting up LeaveNest in UK as well. But one of the key pointers was what happened in 2016, where UK decided to actually do a Brexit. And at that time, I think there were quite a lot of researchers as well as startups fearing that they might lose a grant or money or customers because of this decision making. And for me, UK was a place with such a long history of science and technology being built up for a very long time. And I was very fond of it, as well as also admired the fact that UK has such a research environment. And I really wanted that environment to be continuing. And that's one of the reasons why I actually wanted to set up a LeaveNest to actually help out these kind of researchers or startups who might actually face problems due to Brexit. Although we don't know what's going to happen from Brexit yet, I don't think no one has answers to it as well. But with that, we actually set up a LeaveNest UK in 2016 in UK as well. And in terms of explaining what we have been doing up to now in UK, we have been doing activities like Tech Planter, which is a deep tech startup platform that we have across the world, and we have actually been conducting since 2017. And we have been supporting numbers of deep tech startups from UK. As well as that, we have been working with some of the startups from UK to help out their prototyping by connecting them to Japanese manufacturers. I think you might be able to hear a little bit more about that later on in the panel discussion as well. And then another thing is that we have been also helping out to support investment towards UK startups. So we actually, as a group, Leave a Nest group, we made our first investment towards UK startups. So for anyone, maybe UK startups who's listening to this seminar today, that's something that we might be able to help in future as well. So with that, we have been working on to do those kind of tech planter, helping out startups in different kinds of needs they have, such as prototyping and so on. Now, the activities of UK and Japan connection is becoming more and more exciting. So I think back in 2020, we had a free trade agreement between UK and Japan as well being signed. And plus, some of the startups who's joining in as a panelist today, these kind of UK startup as well as Japan startup are also interested in working in expanding to their different countries such as Japan to UK, UK to Japan. And these kind of collaboration, we think that it will be expanding more in future. And this is why we actually want to conduct this online seminar today to actually understand and also to actually see what kind of business opportunities there might be between the collaboration in UK and Japan ecosystem. And another very exciting news that we would like to announce today is that we will be starting a program with Tech Nation, who is the keynote speaker of today, to actually help out UK startup to enter to Japan market as well. And from this, we would be grateful for many of the UK startups who's listening today to be able to see the opportunities in what kind of business opportunities there are in Japan, and also many of the big Japanese corporates who's actually listening to this online seminar today to see what kind of interesting UK startups that there are who's interested in coming into Japan and what kind of business opportunities can we have through collaboration. So with that, it would be grateful if we can actually have an online seminar today to have more understanding about this area. And furthermore, I would like to pass the button to actually today's keynote presenter, who will be Mr. Max Pourrat, who is the head of the Asia Pacific for Tech Nation. So Max, I guess you're in UK right now. So good morning, I guess.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I'm in the UK today. I'm in our London office. Usually I'm based out of Singapore, but now that travel is reopening, I took the opportunity to come here and meet the team. So yes, I am in the UK and enjoying the cold weather. Cold for me.
Yeah, I guess if you are in Singapore, yeah. So maybe I'll pass it to you to give a keynote presentation.
Yes, thank you very much. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Leave a Nest for inviting us today to speak and to share a little bit more about what we do at Tech Nation, both domestically and internationally, and now you're looking at how we can support the bridge between the UK and Japan, especially. So a little bit about Tech Nations, I think is for the people who don't necessarily know who we are. So we started around 10 years ago with the idea to support UK tech companies to grow and to support like in different ways to access to capital, access to mentorships, access to government support. And as of last year, we started looking at internationally and how we could support our companies to accelerate and de-risk their entry in Asia Pacific. We're doing that alongside with the Digital Trade Network. that was established by the UK government. It's both from the Department of International Trade and the DCMS, looking at how we can support the companies going from the UK to Asia Pacific, with a key focus on a few regions, which is Singapore, Australia, and Japan are the key ones that we're looking at. So a little bit about on 10 years, some numbers of what technicians have done. We have engaged with more than 3,000 companies, startups, and scale-ups in the UK. We've delivered, actually, this is not anymore up to date. We are actually at 35 programs cohorts now that represent almost 1,000 companies that went through our cohort. We supported in $30 billion in investment raised. We have an equity learner, so we really support in learning process. We have a visa application process for people that want to come to the UK and work in tech. We support in this, and we've had more than 4,000 application processed over the past 2 years. We write reports on the tech ecosystem with a focus on the UK. So if you want to see any reports with good numbers on the regions, we recommend to go into our website and to look at it. And out of all our alumni, 12 went IPO, and 30% of all the unicorns from the UK came through our programs and work with us at some point. So that would be Checkout, that would be Wise, that would be Revolut, more into the fintech, but also Deliveroo, Skyscanner, etc. We have a long history of working with great company. Just to show a little bit about why the UK is such a great ecosystem, to echo a little bit what Michael was saying, why it makes sense also for Live Nest to be in the region. In 2018, Tech Business was born in the UK every 60 minutes, so every hours. In 2020, it was every 30 minutes. So it just shows that there is a big switch, and there's a lot of opportunity coming into the region. It's not about quantity, so it's also a lot about quality. So the UK has joined only US and China, the only 3 nations that have created more than 100 tech unicorn, which is private companies valued at more than 1 billion. So it just showcased that the ecosystem is actually very, very big, but also very successful and creating impactful companies. And we decided to look a little bit more into details of and what are the opportunities from the tech ecosystem to come into Asia Pacific and globally. And so we looked at some of the key sectors where we see trends growing. So cybersecurity is really something that we've seen growing, like with 21% increase in the number of cyber firms creating in the UK since 2019. Health tech, I think, obviously the ongoing COVID crisis has showed that we had to look at different ways. So that was something that was captured into the tech innovations, and we see big growth in this. Fintech, I think UK was always well known for some of fintech products, but I guess is really continuing, and we see more investments coming in there. So making UK second globally in investments in terms of fintech from venture capital money. Deep tech is a big thing that we see, which is one of the reasons why I think we can have such a great program with Live Nest that can support us in bringing company in this particular sector into the region. And green tech, because we cannot ignore anymore that everything that we do will have an impact. And we see that technology can actually help us solve this problem. And we see that also into the ecosystem in terms of growth of opportunity. So in Asia Pacific, so as I mentioned, we focusing on a few regions really, and that's why we pick partners that we believe can really add value in the local knowledge and can help create programs that will support our companies and also find the right network, support companies coming in the region and looking to expand in a faster ways and de-risk their entry. The reason why also we start looking at Asia Pacific, so we see that some of our unicorn, Dark Revolut, Wise, Deliveroo are already in the region and being successful in the region. sometimes more successful than it would be in other parts of the world. We have a cohort called the Future 50. So this is the companies that are, we believe, the future top 50 companies coming out of the UK. And more than 60% of them are looking to expand in Asia Pacific in the next 12 months. There's another indication why we're focusing on this region. But also, like in our fintech and net zero companies that we talk to, Japan is in the top 5 markets for the key expansion. So it's been mentioned actually from not only those sectors, but like across our companies, that Japan is a top markets that people are looking at, but they still have a lot of questions on how to do it and how to make sure that they can add value and do it the right way. There is still a lot of unknowns that we can hopefully, with the right with our team and the right partners, answer any questions and build this bridge between the UK and Japan in tech. So we're really helping the best of UK tech with the growth in the regions I already touched on, but I wanted to mention the work that we did. I already touched on a little bit on this, but again, a little bit more. We're working with the UK government, so we're fully part of the digital trade network in Asia Pacific. So we're helping corporates, governments, investors, and partners across the region to connect with UK technology, either through our programs or either through a few things that we offer. So the international growth programs is what Michael mentioned earlier, that we're gonna launch. We're starting the recruitment now, and we're gonna launch in around June, July, where we work with the partners and we really select a few companies that are relevant for the market, and we help like with mentorships, with understanding of the market, and with pitching of the right companies to understand, are they ready for the market? What do they need to know? What is the competitive analysis and everything? We also do some webinars in APAC series about educations that we have actually, I can see the 2 speakers from today were one of our APAC series about Japan, sharing for companies that we tell a company it's never too early to think about coming to Japan and considering how to adapt your product. So we put those series online where we have professionals coming talking about the difference of culture, the difference of hiring in the region, the difference of doing sales, closing a first deal, etc. So really kind of breaking those barriers and some all too often stereotypes that we hear about like going to do this. The third one is reverse pitching that I will touch a little bit more after on. It's about like how do we go and talk to corporations in Japan, understand where is the innovation issues or the innovation opportunities that it would have, and understand that so we can go and recruit through our ecosystem the relevant companies that will be startups or scale-ups that would be able to potentially solve these innovations and start a partnership like this. So reverse pitching, we ask a corporation, what is your problem? Let us help, and let us find us relevant companies that can help you. So it's not just going to be like a lot of companies. It might be only one, but if I can solve your problem, that's a great result. The technician visa programs that I mentioned earlier. So if anyone wants to come and to the UK and expand their company into the UK and add supports to be able to have visa, we have a full teams to be able to support on this and help companies to come in the region. And then finally, but not least, we do some go-to-market advisory. So we have some experts in-house that can take companies that are a little bit more advanced and really give the correct advisory, hopefully, and some consultancy to enter the market. So before I close, just a little bit of an example of work that we did already with our reverse pitching in Japan. So we work with company names that you obviously recognize here. So Entity Data, Monika, Itochu, and Toshiba were 4 of the companies that we work with. And where we saw that during those 4 events, it's like there was more than 100 registration of people that were interested, and 90 UK scale-ups that were engaged and participated in the conversation, and more than 20 proposals from UK tech scale-ups sent to the corporates. And now it's not official anything yet, so I cannot share, but I can tell you that some of our UK scale-ups are started working in pilots and partnership with some of those companies. So We're really trying to cover and to support our company in bridging coming to the region from early stage to later stage and give different solutions to support and to bridge between the two regions. So I'm going to stop talking because I'm really looking forward actually to hear more about the panel and not about me. So, but I wanted to share a little bit about what we do, and if there is anything that you would have more questions about what we do at Technicians, who would like just have a conversation with me, you can find me on LinkedIn, or there is our international address, or I'm sure Michael will be very pleased to introduce us. So once again, Michael and Libanese team, thank you very much. Thank you for everyone that is attending today and for listening to myself and then to the amazing panel that is following. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Max. Thank you so much for your great presentation. I think it was very, very interesting to understand about what Technation is actually working on. And I think we can actually be very excited about the programs that will be starting with the Technation and Libanese to help collaboration between UK companies and Japan companies. So with that, I would like to actually share screen again and then maybe share a little bit about what we would be expecting next. So next, what we are going to have is a panel session. And we'll be actually inviting these three members, which is Mr. Kurihara Yosuke from ARC Inc., which is a Japanese startup. And then Dr. Monika Tomecka from Ufractionate, which is a UK startup. And then Mr. Dominic Falcao from Deep Science Venture, which is a leading accelerators from UK side with a strong focus on deep tech as well. And before going into the panel discussion to discuss about them sharing what kind of opportunities there might be in collaboration between Japan and UK, maybe I would like to ask each of the members to give a 5-minute presentation to first share about who you are, what kind of business you do. So maybe we can do it in orders of ARC, Ufractionate, and then Deep Science Ventures. Okay. Okay. So with that, I would like to actually ask Mr. Kurihara first to share your screen and maybe start your presentation.
Thank you, Michael. Can everybody hear me well? Yes, good.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Thank you. So good morning, good afternoon. My name is Yo Kurihara. I'm the co-founder and chief sustainability officer at ARC, and I'm actually based in London. We have founded in 2020 and has R&D center and office in Japan and also office in UK. Our concept is to let the ocean rest and recreate small ocean on the land to sustain the seafood supply chain. To make it happen, we set our mission is to decentralize aquaculture, harmonizing with the emerging large-scale centralized fish farming. So what we do, we really simply make small and distributed aquaculture pods for anybody and anywhere. The reason why we decided to dedicate ourselves in this field is to solve the common issues of the world. We have been facing these issues for years now, especially I think it's been emphasized because of COVID and this Russian and Ukraine war. And we have been trying to solve these, but these are very hard to solve, since if you try to solve one, you accelerate another. That's why we teamed up together to build and found ARC. I'm actually 1/3 of the company. Koyo is our CEO, and Isamu is our chief aqua officer. The container behind us is the prototype one. We started from buying used container and build aquarium on our own from steel and fiber. And we actually all have tech IoT background. We used to work together in the same company, which was a leading Japanese IoT company. and we teamed up for ARC to make the actual solution for Japanese blue tech. So this is our prototype 3 up and running in Fukushima, Japan, and also Kanagawa in Japan. The most iconic part is the size. 9.99 square meter is only a parking spot for our car. Another feature is automation and IoT, feeding system, self-cleaning system, purification, and remote monitoring application are all included and developed in-house. Last but not least, energy efficiency is the key to decentralize the system and sustainability. It works off-grid up to 24 hours with a lithium-ion battery. We are going to offer also a monthly subscription service, including juveniles, water, feed, and app application in one package. Also, we are focusing on R&D to expand the lineups of the fish to farm. We started as a vaname shrimps, but also looking at seaweed and other fish too. We started our collaboration with Japan Railway East. Now our ARC is up and running at Namie Station in Fukushima, Japan. We set up the facility back in February, and now we are farming 3,000 shrimps along with the facilities of the station. We have exhibited in Dubai and COP26. Obviously, our demand is global, so we have been seeking out how to sort of like localize our product, because we are a pretty new company, but our global strategy is important. It's one of the core focus of ourselves at the moment. There are a lot of potential use cases around the world. We have a lot of queries from Africa, Middle East, obviously where the food security is the governmental issue. And maybe there are chances to set up near the fish ports or right in the center of Tokyo or London, which the demand is high and crucial. We have been working with ENEOS, which is one of the largest energy companies in Japan, and they obviously this high pressure of shifting toward carbon neutral. They are seeking food supply chain which dedicated to the society of carbon neutral. Also working with Sompo Japan to commercialize small-scale land-based aquaculture insurance. I think insurance is important to face in the primal industry. Finally, we have 3 premises as entrepreneurs. One is to be involved in blue revolutions for the Great Reset. Second, we establish balanced triple bottom line in land-based aquaculture. Last but not least, we are trying to lead awakening of Japanese agri and aquatech in the global markets. Thank you all, and thank you Live Nest team today for having me today. We are eager to see collaborations in UK and the rest of the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kurihara. Hope to actually eat your shrimp soon in maybe UK or Japan. So with that, now I'll pass it. Yeah, fingers crossed. Now with that, I would like to pass it on to Monika to maybe share about Ufractionate.
Thank you very much for that. I hope everybody can see my screen.
Yep.
Perfect. So thanks for having me today and for the opportunity to share a little bit about Ufractionate and being part of the panel. I will jump straight in, starting to telling you that the future of our manufacturing is built with biology. That touch on a little bit of the previous presentation. I'm sure it will touch on the following me as well. And the buzz around it started around the COVID pandemic, but the truth is that the COVID pandemic wasn't the only source of it. Biomanufacturing can produce for us all possible products of everyday use, such as our food, feed for our animals, our medicines, or our biofuels. And we are using loads of different types of microbes which are helping us to produce those products, such as yeast, bacteria, mammalian cells, microalgae, and few others. But what's important to understand, or what's interesting to think about this field, is that despite of what kind of product we will be creating and what kind of cells people are using to actually create those products, the processes which they undergo to make those products are very similar to each other. They choose what cells they want to grow, then they grow them either in fermenters or bioreactors or photobioreactors, and then they have to harvest their product to be able to bring it to the market. It's important to mention, however, that this harvesting or cell harvest or biomass harvesting step, it's very costly. It can take up to 80% of total production cost. And that's because it's a multi-stage, inefficient and expensive process, very often combining filtration, flocculation, centrifugation, and final drying to take the product out of the liquid in which it is grown. At Eufractionate, we are focusing in exchanging this inefficient chain of reactions with one piece of microfluidics-based filtration technology that makes the whole process much more simple, and cheaper for our customers. We are offering an exceptional savings both on CapEx and OpEx by minimizing the installation costs and saving up to 3/4 of the energy being produced, being used for this harvesting step. You're probably already wondering how we're doing that. We are actually working with microfluidics at scale. I'm not going to go too much into the details of the tech, but I'm happy to answer any questions if there might be any after the talks. But we have a patented way of parallelizing microfluidics into modules, which you can see in the stage 2 of my presentation. And the biggest instrument we've built so far is a 5-module system, which is running at around 1.5 liters per minute. At the moment, we are at the phase of big growth and development and scale up of our technology with an active development and build for a 100-module system, which you can see on the step number 4. So that's where we are very much focused at the moment to get that happened. We are bringing this innovative technology to the $19 billion bioseparation instrument market with $2 billion in our direct beachhead. We were focused for the last 4 years since we started on the microalgae field and biopharma. Recently, however, we are getting a lot of interest from cultured meat production. This is the field which wasn't really available 5 years ago when we were starting, and now it's blooming. So we are seeing our play in this market as well. A little bit about the traction which we've got over the last 5 years. We've got a lot of interactions with potential customers. I mean, we are very much interested in potential JDS and trials. We have several letters of interest. We've delivered 8 successful demonstrations with potential customers, gaining around 50K of the revenue from that. We've raised over £3 million to help us to grow and develop this technology. We've been very heavily grant funded, so we have a lot of international projects and grants delivered with established and pronounced international institutions such as National Physics Laboratory and several prospective customers. Because we are a UK company, and we already, Michael, you've mentioned a little bit about Brexit already. We had a little bit of the emergency plan for that as well. In 2019, we opened fully on Polish subsidiary to allow us undisturbed market our access to the European market. And in this year, we've actually started the big project for the scale up. It's happening actually here in Poland. Obviously, because of the course of this presentation, I would like to touch on our developments and tractions in Japan. We were actually, well, thanks to Live&S, we've managed to interact with this market for quite a while already, since 2017, when we were a grant winner in Tech Planter in UK, which helped us and allowed us to travel in 2019 to Tokyo for the hyper-interdisciplinary conference to be able to discuss with potential partners on that market. We've also had open discussions or initiated discussions with the manufacturers in Japan, and they actually help us to build our first prototype in Tokyo, which actually can be seen now in center of garage. So now, fast forward to 2022, we're actually we've got the investment from Live&S, and we are looking at Japan as a very important part of our development in the very near future. We are actively working on preparation of another showcase in Japan. That's probably going to happen by the end of 2022. We're planning to open a Japanese subsidiary, and we are supported not only by Live&S but other institutions such as JETRO and SDI as well. I'm not going to go too much on the business model to just save on time, but just to say that we are working, or we opened discussions with several customers already, and we are always open for more. So if anybody listening would be interested in trialing our technology, we would be more than happy to arrange that. So we are Ufractionate. I'm Dr. Monika Tomecka, founder and director. Together with Brian, we are building the technology to enable sustainable food production. We are supported by great advisors who are experts in this field. And thanks to recent raise, we've managed to enlarge our team from 4 to almost 15 now. So we are super happy that where it's going, and I'm happy to be here today and be part of the panel. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Monika, as well, for great presentation. It's very exciting to see you guys growing since 2017 as well. Thank you. So with that, finally but not least, let me invite Dominic to maybe share a little bit about deep science ventures as well.
Can you now see my screen?
Yep. Thank you so much.
Okay, beautiful. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm just going to kick off. I'll try and keep this nice and short. We're a company creator. So we focus on deep tech companies, and we create these companies from scratch. And we do this outside of the university environment, and we do it on a kind of global scale. We're focused a little bit like Leave a Nest, and I think that's why we get on so well, on these twin goals of planetary and human happiness, and using science so as to achieve those. And we work from the top down, basically trying to establish what the kind of fundamental drivers and critical path interventions on both human happiness and planetary success might be. We've so far built 35 companies over the last 5 years. I've included a few of them here, but you can see that they span subjects from therapeutics, kind of advanced cell therapies, to hydrogen production and semiconductors and computing. So there's quite significant overlap in terms of thematic interest with many of the major industries in Japan, and the UK and Japan share these kind of strengths in common. Obviously also, we worked with Monika and Brian at the very beginning of Ufractionate's journey to help form that company back in 2017. So that's where the connection is across all of these threads. The way we work is by partnering specifically with governments, corporations, and foundations, so as to partner on a specific social outcome that we care about, and then work out the best technology and company and business model that will achieve a scalable solution to that. So some of the partners we work with are, for example, Anglo-American, the UK Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult, Cancer Research UK. We, since the pandemic, went fully decentralized. So we also have core members of staff all over the world. We're so far, as of yet, to hire someone in Japan, but this is definitely something we'd love to do. We've got people at the moment on the West Coast in the US, in San Francisco, in Zurich and Sao Paulo, and in the middle of the Welsh countryside. So our core team is everywhere. We also recruit founders and build companies everywhere in the world as well. So not all of our companies are built directly in London, even though we're headquartered here. So we've got companies at the moment based in Boston, Amsterdam, Edinburgh, and there's huge potential to do this kind of company creation, to form these teams directly in the most exciting markets for them. So one of the conversations that we're having at the moment, in the very late stage, that hopefully we'll be able to announce shortly, is with a very large Japanese therapeutics corporation. So that's all I was going to say, just to briefly kind of cover off, and I think it'd be great to get into the discussion and talk about some of the topics. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you so much, Dominic. Thank you for your great presentation as well. It's very interesting because Japan has a lot of strong research background as well. So there must be a huge synergy between deep science ventures and Japan as well. So With this, we actually had three key men from the deep tech ecosystem from both Japan and UK side, and we would be grateful if we can actually move on to the panel discussion for these players to actually discuss about what kind of business opportunities could there be between UK and Japan ecosystem through UK Japan ecosystem player. And I'm very excited to actually invite Jack, who is our local UK Leave&S UK director of Leave&S UK, to actually moderate this session. So maybe I'll call for Jack. Hi, Jack. Morning.
Hi, everybody. Morning. It's great to be here.
I'll pass it to you.
Thanks, Michael. So first of all, thanks to everybody for attending, and thanks for Monica and Dom for the presentations. Just a very brief bit about me. I also studied at UCL. I was a neuroscientist there for 10 years. I then left and worked a bit in the voluntary sector, and then went back to work in enterprise, scaled a kids entrepreneurship program across Europe and Africa, opened a massive incubator for the university, and then left to open my own incubator, and been working with Michael for since Leave&S started in the UK. So it's really good to see everybody, and great to hear these discussions. And as Michael, great to have moderate this. Michael said, we've left the EU now. It's happened. Brexit has happened, and we've got our free trade agreement with Japan, and we're looking ahead now to the situation as it is right now. There's 1,000 Japanese companies in the UK with supporting about 180,000 jobs, hoping to see that grow, hoping that Leave&S and everyone here can be part of that. So I thought it would be interesting to find out a little bit about the how each of the startups here started, and what support that you have already had, because that will help us to think about the support that you might need in the future and where the ambitions are going to go. So I was going to start with you, if I could, with regards to ARC. How did you get going in Japan, and what support did you get there to get you off the ground?
Thanks, Jack. So this is actually my second opportunity to start up a company in UK. So probably I'm a little bit ahead in terms of the experience, but the embassy in Japan, and also basic relationship with the UK and Japan government is tight. So I think both of the governments helped us a lot to set it up and introduce proper people both in Japan and in the UK. So it wasn't so difficult for us to set up an entity here.
That's good to hear. And it's not hard. It's not easy to set up a business that needs to manufacture things, needs to create things. You mentioned how you started out with your secondhand shipping containers and got things off the ground with those. And you mentioned that your business is about steel and fiberglass, and it's real stuff. How did you manage to get the sort of the design and manufacturing part of putting your prototypes? You said you're on your prototype 3 at the moment, so you've gone through some iterations. You must have had some real struggles to get to that point. Tell us a bit about those.
Thank you, Mike, Jack. So there are some issues in manufacturing and designing phase for us at the moment, because as I mentioned in my presentation, the supply chain, and also there is basic shortage of everything for manufacturing: steel, fiberglass, oil, boiler and oil tank. Everything is in shortage, and now Japanese yen is so weak, so most of the materials is the price of the materials are increasing in Japan. So it's getting slightly harder and harder to build things in Japan. But we have a good resource of people and researchers who has the basic skills to think and build on our hands. So that helps us accelerating prototyping phase. But in the commercialization and the globalization, we do need to seek out who can be our partners to build and also sell our products globally. So that's where we are at the moment, and we are going to be in the commercializing phase this summer to autumn. So we are eager to find out some of the partners for our sales in India market and also the rest of the world.
So obviously, partnerships are immensely important to how you're going to scale and commercialize and grow the business and enter into new markets. What's your sort of strategy for seeking out those partnerships and finding them, and kind of where do you see it going?
Well, so we probably soon have to make two decisions. One would be, are we keep building a product in Japan, or should we just start up a new factory in the somewhere other than Japan? And the second decision we might have to make is, are we distributing or selling by ourselves, or are we having a reseller partnership with somebody in the market? So those are two decisions that we have to make in our future activity.
I mean, they're big decisions, and I mean, a lot of it's going to be based on cost, I'm imagining, and practicalities. But I suppose you're going to need to be able to talk and get exposure to a lot of the potential industry partners and smaller sector partners that you're looking for. What's your strategy for finding them?
I think you and probably people like Dom and other great entrepreneurs who's already in the track. So I'll just keep going for chasing you guys and asking a bunch of questions, and probably somebody will be giving me a right answer and directions. I think there's no shortcut, I believe. So probably the only way is make great products and approach to great people who's already in the market.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we're lucky that in the UK now things are opening up after the pandemic and we're getting some real world events you can start to attend, but hammering away at it is extremely important. And Monika, just thinking about how your Fractionate got off the ground in the UK, I mean, you know, Yo's telling us there about how he's hammering away at networking and trying to connect to people. You must have had to do a lot of that over the 5 years that you've been going. Just tell us a little bit about your strategy for kind of how you got the company off the ground here, and then how you connected to all the relevant people you must have needed to have.
Absolutely. So we had a little bit of the support at the beginning because, as Dom mentioned, we were actually one of the companies which they were accelerating. So we had a good, foot forward from the start, that we actually had people behind us who knew a little bit more about the markets that we did, at such an early stage. I'm a huge advocate for like networking, and I'm really happy that COVID is finishing and we can actually start going for the in-person events, because I get a lot of contacts through those, like through discussing with the people and trying to look for potential collaborators on those. So that's pretty much the way how we were doing it, pre-pandemic, and then obviously during pandemic it changed hugely how we could interact with the potential partners. But I mean, we're living in digital world, so actually it wasn't that difficult. You're just identifying where you want to go and who you would like to work with, and then you're basically knocking on their door. It's not always successful, but then again, I think that's what Yo said as well. I mean, having people behind you as well who can help you. We know with the door opening, that's always a huge help for startups.
Definitely, and I think we've all missed out on the kind of serendipitous meetings and introductions that you have when you're in an event. I mean, Dom, opportunity here if you want to just tell us a little bit more about how Deep Science Ventures facilitates that kind of stuff, because I think it's really important for everybody to remember how we used to do that, and then be doing it even more so that we can create these networks. So tell us a bit more.
Yeah, and Jack, I was just gonna say something about your previous question as well, which was about the sorts of support required to enable kind of like cross-border collaborations and commercials. Because when we form companies, as I said, we often form them in a different country, or we'll form them with a headquarter in one country and a subsidiary in another, or later they'll go on to do that organically anyway, like Ufractionate has, right? And I think there's especially if you've got like a real focus on a bilateral relationship between two countries in particular, there's huge scope to make that much easier, and therefore to massively improve the kind of relationship between those two countries in terms of collaborations and so on. Some of the kind of like most basic things are just having a list of lawyers and accountants who are fluent in the kind of technicalities of both geographies, or at least have a really good relationship with a counterparty in the other. Other really basic stuff would be, but stuff that I don't know where it exists at the moment, but I'd love to find out, would be things like cookie cutter templates for intra-country commercials, like establishment of subsidiaries, transfer of shares, joint development, heads of terms, license agreements, things like that. Because they have to typically be done on a custom basis by a set of lawyers who, one of those parties is trying to learn the law of the other. It's super hard. That's the kind of like administrative stuff. I think there's two other kind of broad areas. One is around people. So kind of joint training initiatives on shared skills. It's highly likely that the UK and Japan have got the same kinds of skills deficits as we move into kind of advanced therapies and green energy. But even things as basic as like talent search in two respective geographies. So someone landing here, how do they quickly build a company and team here? Or and similarly, kind of like my previous point, guides on employment contracts and like tax on those two nations. And the kind of last thing would be the kind of commercial side, which is who are the navigators who understand both geographies well and can help companies moving between them move around. So Leave a Nest is obviously kind of a gold standard example of a company that's embedded itself in both countries and has kind of prided itself on having really good network and local knowledge. There's a need for kind of scaling up the number of investors who have that kind of capability, but also just on normal kind of commercial arrangements, the sort of supply chain, granular supply chain matching. So a company lands, is there an industry lead who understands all the potential customers for that company and can help make those introductions on a kind of personalized basis? Ideally understanding what kind of customers are going to be best suited to a company at that stage. So startups at the kind of early stage like Arc and Ufractionate are going to benefit from corporates who move really quickly, who have lightweight legals, and who understand that you need kind of like small pots of funding to be able to enable those initial types of collaboration. So it's really just a kind of like curation exercise that I think will massively reduce the kind of types of relationship that UK companies and Japanese companies can have. I can't remember what your second question was though, sorry, Jack.
I was just asking, I was just remarking on how important real world networking is and actually getting out there and connecting people together. And I know that you guys do a lot of that. So I was just sort of thinking of it as an opportunity for you to kind of tell us a bit about how your strategy is for connecting people together. I mean, you mentioned that you've got a global workforce now, people everywhere. Managing that's an interesting challenge in itself, but how do you then allow those people to make new connections? Because I think that's the thing that's been missing for the last couple of years is that opportunity to make new connections. Yeah,
you're right, Jack. And I mean, I'm kind of got a split perspective on this. On the one hand, I feel like if anything, coronavirus has taught us that long distance relationships between companies and between employees is possible in a way that maybe you'd be skeptical in a personal relationship, right? I find that so we've built companies entirely from scratch without ever meeting the founders during this period. Paired the founders together, they secured investment in those companies, found follow-up investment, and for the first time are just meeting the teams now. And I don't actually think it has impaired our relationship with them. If anything, it feels as if I'd met them before. I think that represents a real opportunity for two countries that are as geographically separated as the UK and Japan. If it had to be the case that the only way we could have really meaningful relationships was if we were in the same place all the time, that would really slow things down and represent a friction. But at the same time, it does make a difference to have people and groups that are physically in both geographies that represent the other. That allows you to have some of that kind of personal connection and make it feel like that country isn't so far away. I was going to give an example of, we've got someone in town at the moment who runs alliances for our agriculture team. He's based in San Francisco and he's here for just 1 week. And basically, as soon as he arrived, he was diagnosed with COVID. So, even once you get here, it can be challenging to meet the people who've traveled all the way across the world. So I feel like actually video calls turn out to be a much more reliable means of connecting with people, which is a kind of, which I'm grateful for, frankly.
Yeah, this isn't going to be a super spreader event, is it? The one we're in now. So that's something. I guess it just reflecting then on your point that it's important to have people able to represent you in each country. And I know, Monika, if we can think back to you showed the picture of your prototype of in the Center of Garage in Tokyo that you exhibited there back in, was it 2019, I think, at the Hyper Interdisciplinary Conference. And I remember looking at the machine and thinking how impressive it was. And I remember talking to Brian, and we talked about how you'd spent a year having the prototype built in Japan. And I sort of had mentally assumed that he would have been in Japan quite frequently during that year to sort of be part of or indeed yourself to be part of creating that prototype. But surprised to find out he didn't have to be there, and actually Lee Vaness was able to facilitate a lot of that. So how easy was that? And I mean, that's it's one thing to digitally recruit and train and build a company culture with staff, but when you're trying to deal with manufacturers and prototyping real equipment, that must have been quite an interesting thing to be able to do. Should you tell us a little bit about it?
It was definitely interesting for us, especially that, we are a young company, and everything which we built up to that point was very much with our own hands, and we wanted to make sure that everything is up to our standards, but doing it ourselves. So it was a bit of a touchy moment as well to make sure that we can interact with the engineers who are on Japanese side and they will be able to put it together. It was actually, we were really lucky, Lee Vaness actually introduced us to amazing super factories in Tokyo, in Japan, who can actually put it together for us. And I'm not saying it was like, without any problems or without any hurdles, but, if you think of building instruments, and you touched on that as well, there's a lot of like leading times for ordering parts and sitting, waiting for that. That's also probably not very productive. So we were very much touching the bases when the work was actually happening. And, this is kind of, you're learning to run it this way, that you sit down to discuss, what needs to be done. And then you leave it in the hands which are capable of doing what you needed to be done. And then touch back later on to see how the development went and what the next steps will be. And this is kind of very similar to developing any digital product to any manufacturing product. If you have great team behind you who can actually, who you can trust that they can deliver, that's what's going to happen. As long as you can manage those collaborations well, and you have to make sure that what's happening on the build side. That's pretty much how it went. Saying that we were. That experience, it was very, very good learning for us, preparing us for the situation which we are in at the moment. So at the moment, we also have, we are also in 2 different geographies. We have a headquarters in UK. We have subsidiary company in Poland. The big build of our scale-up instrument is actually happening in Poland, but we are both operating in both of those countries. So yes, we do fly in and out, but with the learnings which we've done with Japanese. The experience which we've gained, we actually learn how to manage those teams even on the distance, and they do, build the physical instrument without us being present there. And I think this is fantastic.
That's very impressive. I guess with relations to building things in Poland, there's less of a language barrier than there might have been with building them in Japan. But it's good that that was
well, only for me. Brian doesn't speak Polish, so
no. And I know he learned a lot more Japanese than I did, but still not enough to talk a manufacturer. So you mentioned about having a subsidiary in Japan, maybe before the end of the year. What are the sort of what's the support needs that you're going to want and the connections you're going to want to make to set that up?
Well, there's definitely a lot of preparation to make the decision if that's going to happen. However, we have experienced already that a lot of Japanese companies, and Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, they do like to have on site or on the ground representatives of the company who they can reach to and they will be able to interact with. I wouldn't, the way how we are thinking about it, we would like to open possible collaborations, and if we have customers who are interested in interacting with us, this will actually push us to do the subsidiary sooner than later. We wouldn't like to do it the other way around. There were propositions that we would like set up everything and then start looking. But in my opinion, and I mean, you know, we agree on that it is putting a little bit everything into the head. So we are, you know, putting our hands out there now. You know, we are doing the showcases and we are opening the collaborations. And if those will be, you know, looking that they are, you know, they have potential to be prospective, we will be thinking of opening the subsidiary. The support which we will be needed, obviously, you know, we don't speak the language, and you know all the paperwork which is required, you know, I'm sure that Yo had that when he was coming to UK. We will face the same problems when we'll go to Japan. But again, you know, great institutions such as Libanese and a few others which I've mentioned. So, you know, there are institutions such as JETRO. We are also supported by SDI, which is the Scottish Enterprise Development part. Those organizations, they can help us to access lawyers, you know, access offices, and help us to guide us through the maze of the place which we've never been before. So I think that we are very heavily leaning on support from those.
Okay, and I mean, it's interesting to hear that perspective. And then, Yo, you've got the sort of reverse perspective. You started in Japan, you come to the UK. Tell us about how that experience has been.
First of all, Monika, let me know if you need a little, even like a little translation. I know how big that is to have those kind of like little supports, and language definitely is the barrier for the foreign companies to get into Japan market, because it's the very iconic market, I would say. Getting back to Jack's question, of course, getting back to Jack's question, I think relatively, so like I have sort of experienced to build, even I am a Japanese, but it doesn't mean I'm get used to building up a company in Japan. And it's still very complicated for the Japanese people, because the legal, you know, legal grammars are different from speaking grammar in most of the language, I believe. So it was so easy for us, but there are platforms in Japan and also UK. So to start up, to build a company, build a entity set up an entity in Japan, we used a platform, and that helped us a lot, because it was during the COVID, and you know, without meeting with legal people, tax people, we can set it up online, and it helped us a lot. But still, the cost and the process might be a bit more complicated compared to building up a company in UK. Whereas in UK, I also used a platform, and I was quite surprised how easy and quick to set up an entity in UK. Of course, as a foreign company, you have to deliver certain credentials and paperwork to set it up. But I would say it was way easier to set it up comparing to what was in Japan.
I'm pleased to hear that. I think the UK does try its best to be a place where it's easy to set up a company. Not always so easy to get a bank account, but anyway, that's a different matter.
Yes, you're right. It was a way harder to set up a bank account. We finally got it open. I think Michael's experienced the same, right?
Well, trust me, it's nothing to do with. It's not just because it's a foreign-owned company. So you talked about some of those sort of technical and legal, administrative difficulties. How have you? I've got it's an interesting thing here. So you've worked you've started your work in the UK, and you've established stuff in Japan, and you're working on partnerships. You've worked with industry, and you've worked with a range of corporations and partners already. Tell us if you've seen any differences or similarities between working with partners and corporates in Japan versus the UK.
Interesting question. So a little bit of myself. I went to college in the States. So probably a lot of like people, when you think about, at least for Japanese people, if you think about UK, I think people automatically thought of comparing to the culture and the culture to US, because you know, we learn English from school, and most of the education is based in sort of like Americanized English culture. So like I went to college in the States, but I have been in UK for 3 years now, and it's a total different countries. And to be straight, I think it's more. I think cultural difference is smaller for Japanese people comparing to US. So no offense to US, I love the culture there, but I think for business part in terms of business person or business perspective, it's much easier for Japanese people to work together with the society that which the UK established. I believe. I don't know. This is really my personal opinion, but I would like to ask the other people about that. So yes.
Me too. Monika, how have you found it working across those different borders and nations?
Well, I have a bit of a background story as well, so I guess also not a very, pure opinion, but, I'm Polish, born and raised in Poland, but I moved out from Poland to UK when I was 19. So I did all my higher education in UK. So I kind of got immersed into that culture quite early on. Saying that, throughout my PhD, I was living in UK as well as Switzerland and Singapore. So I touched on to like Asian culture for a bit as well. So I guess I think thanks to that, the more cultures you will get into and the more people you will interact to, you will find the next one easier to go with. So going to Japan was a big step for us. And between me and my co-founder, like Brian, really he's interested in the culture. So he was very much, preparing, as you said, he learned some words and he really was trying to follow the rules. I mean, obviously, Japan is quite strict when it comes to rituals and all, cultural interactions. For me, it was just, I think, much easier to interact with the people over there because you're just open to, what's coming, and obviously you're respecting all the other cultures. They are things which you're always learning. So I think that my background story into getting where I am at the moment and into interacting with the Japanese market helped me to actually get a soft landing in Japan, if I can say it this way.
Yes, I think a soft landing is exactly what we all want when we're going to different territories. I suppose the interesting question there to all three of you, maybe we'll start with Dom, if that's all right, is what is it that the Japanese sort of industrial partners, the corporates that may be on the call here, what would our kind of request be to them as to how they could help establish things in Japan and help you with that soft landing in Japan? So Dom, if we could start with you on those key things that those corporates and industry partners could do to help.
Main thing that corporates could do to help. I'm just thinking about, so I actually think it's been relatively straightforward to work with the Japanese partner that we're building up a relationship with. I wouldn't change very much in terms of the way they've structured things. And I would never, of course, think about giving feedback to Japanese industry in general. But I found one of the slight challenges we had is that sometimes your counterparty or stakeholder in Japan will change. It feels like there's quite frequent reorganization, which means that one of the critical things for me is having a constant champion through the venture creation process. So it takes us between 12 and 18 months to form a company, and then that company will take a little while to deliver their first product. So having some kind of stasis and stability in terms of the relationships, the individuals that you form there can be really important. But otherwise, I don't know. I think honestly most of the I think Yo captured it quite well when he said that culturally there's really strong affinity, and it's very easy to form relationships with organizations like BLOOM.SPACE, for example. I think much more the challenge is the boring stuff, actually finding the partner in the first place, or the administration of setting up that agreement when you want to start things going. We have as an organization that creates companies as well, we've had separate issues in Japan outside of the relationship side. So our model is to headhunt people and then persuade them to start companies. This is much harder in Japan, where if I approach somebody who's got a job in Japan and say, leave your extremely stable job and come start a company which doesn't exist yet on an idea we haven't got yet, that's a much harder proposition. So actually the talent side for us is more challenging as well. One of the things we might think about then is how you can do how we could make it so that people retain stable roles in Japanese corporations, but are given the chance to experience startup culture while doing that. So in the form of secondments and so on. So those kinds of like more flexible arrangements might be a kind of possible strategy, and might also have kind of dual benefits in terms of spreading a more entrepreneurial culture, or like creating bridges between nations in that way as well.
Yeah, encouraging entrepreneurialism inside big corporates. I think that's true. I think it's interesting then. So Monika and Yo, you've both experienced working in these different territories. What do you think, if in an ideal world, from your own perspective, what do you think that the corporates could do, or the big partners that you're trying to work with could do that make things easier? Dom mentioned earlier about having a light touch towards sort of legals and administration, and sort of getting partnership arrangements together. You guys don't have a legal team. You don't have a department that deals with things like that. It's essential that they do things in a light touch way, because you've got to read the documents and make decisions, and it takes a lot of time, and it's a lot of expertise needed to do it. What other kind of things do you think that they might be able to help you with?
If I can jump first, something which definitely comes to mind, and it's not that different to any other corporate, so it's not only Japanese ones, it's the time of interaction with the startups. And I mean, like, we're experiencing that over and over and over. And recently we're experiencing that with the big corporates from Japan, that they just take a lot of time to interact, and, you know, to check their, like, you know, from the initial discussions to get the follow-up discussions, and then the follow-up discussions later on, you know, they go back and take a lot of time, you know, for the internal discussions. Well, obviously the timelines are not aligning with the startups timelines, right? But again, I don't think it's any different to the big corporates which we are interacting here in Europe with. So I mean, there is a big push for like making them realize that, you know, that would be fantastic if they could actually move you know, on lighter terms, or like, you know, that try to do it a little bit faster. So this is something which would be a huge ask from us. And I mean, you know, you mentioned about the legal documentation. I mean, yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, but that's everywhere, you know, when there is a different language, and if there is a barrier in the language, you know, you will have to engage some people who will be able to do like lawyers and, you know, translations for you to prepare those documents. But again, allowing them to have a lighter touch, so not super lengthy document for, you know, not the same templates which they are using for big corporates to big corporations, but, you know, having something in the smaller version for a startup is usually enough for the initial interactions.
So making startup friendly processes, and yeah, agreed. I think that
and if I can do, sorry, one more sentence, we've already seen that happening. So, you know, I think, you know, Europe has a bit of a head start for that they are having those innovation centers, or they are having like accelerator programs for startups. You know, they are putting their challenges out, and they are looking for startups who would start, you know, who would, you know, try to work on those challenges with them. I have to say that I'm really happy that I've actually recently seen that from 2 big corporates in Japan, that they're also going into that route. So I mean, the change is happening. I mean, you know, I think everybody's learning on the journey.
That's good to hear. Yo, what's your experience on this?
Oh, wow. I think it's a great topic to deal with, especially this panel discussion. I have 2 things to say. One would be it's very, very hard to meet the right person in Japanese big corporations. It takes time, and even if you spend time, and if he or she looks like he decides things, but sometimes he and she isn't, and so decision-making process in the Japanese organization is vague, and it's not quantitative. So people say, relatively compared to the Western companies, Japanese organizations are slow to make decisions. But I would say yes and no, because when you meet with the right people who has the right to make decisions, she or he's very, very quick. So, but the important thing again is to meet her or him in the most efficient way is very hard. So I want the Japanese big corporations to label her or he as she or he is decision making, because it doesn't. If you have like a director title or manager title, doesn't always mean you have a right to decide. So that's that's one thing. So even like people who's relatively in the lower layer of the organization, if the company decides to make decision, that let the decision make by her, then by her or him, then that accelerates the collaboration with the venture business. The other thing, it might be a broader opinion. Maybe why don't they have a little space to take more risk? I think, because the survival rate of the life is 0% anyways. So you'll eventually die, and there's nobody who's survived for your life. Your life, the survival rate is 0. So if you start saying something, everything's a risk, but at the same time, everything could be a chance. So my little advice or will to say, if I can, set up a quantitative risk, so like a parameter. Let's say, okay, you can make decisions up to $100 million or something, and then if you get higher than that, it's a risk for the organization, because there is no quantitative parameter for the Japanese organization to take risk or not. So that might be a good approach to have an efficient collaboration with the venture capitals and venture business with the big corporations in Japan. Sorry, it was a bit long. Sorry.
It's a very interesting practical thing that hopefully some people on the call here will find useful, and the most cheerful thought that we're all going to die, so what the hell's the point? I know that wasn't the point you were making. That's fine. Risks are there to be taken, definitely. I also think there's another factor here to consider, which from a sort of policy perspective and from an economic perspective, big corporations don't create new jobs. They tend to have about the same number of jobs in them in total. And new jobs are created by new businesses. And actually, when you think about it, it makes sense. Dom, you're in the sector here of making new businesses and creating, therefore, brand new jobs all over the place. What kind of stuff, where do you see the future going for this? And I'm going to ask Monika and Yo the same questions in a minute. The future for your businesses in your new territories. But Dom, where do you see the future going for Deep Science Ventures? You talked perhaps about having staff in Japan one day, but how do you see the future going to look for you guys?
Yeah, interesting question. I mean, if anything, we're going to double down on the kind of distributed, decentralized angle here. It's been a huge boon for us, and it's not actually that surprising, because if you think about it, geography is an artificial constraint. Like, it narrows your focus to something that really has like no particular. It's highly unlikely that focusing just on your own geography in a kind of science and technology field is going to increase your success. And so the question for us is how we can reduce that bias in every conceivable way. So in terms of the partners we work with, the staff, the geographies that we focus on, the geographies that we start in, it does come with coordination challenges. So you need to have really rigorous systems for decision making and information sharing. You need to have really clear bases for incentives and things like that. And so it's really about building. The future of DSV is really about building out that kind of coordination layer for global R&D. So to help companies work with researchers wherever they are, to help investors back founders wherever they are, and to focus on solving problems like in the most efficient way possible. So that's the kind of future of DSV, really. I don't think we're going to change a vast amount. There are some new programs that we'll be announcing that I think will be really exciting opportunity as well for UK, Japan, Asia Pacific, more general collaborations. So we'll introduce a PhD program next year where we're seeking accreditation to be able to certificate PhDs, candidates, to be able to do a PhD in a distributed way. So instead of working with a single lab and a single university for the whole duration, the design of the program would be that you spend the first year working out what you want your own research topic to be, and then we match you with supervisors. It could be multiple supervisors in many different labs all over the world. So you then go and work across those spaces. So amazing opportunity for like people starting a PhD in Japan to come and work in the UK or vice versa, for example. And we're also looking at coordinating actual R&D programs as well across multiple universities in a similar kind of way. So that would be kind of like the postdoc stage. So really, we're just expanding in terms of like the breadth, the kind of depth of what we do. So from venture creation to talent and research, and also in terms of the breadth, so the kind of infrastructure we have for that kind of coordination.
So this is fascinating. So I mean, what you just talked about there about this PhD program that you're generating, that you're working on. I mean, that links back to this idea that actually having staff in big corporates do secondments and come out and do, you know, a PhD in that program and get exposure to a massive range of experience in different places. It will bring huge value back into that big company once they've finished it, and keep the workforce there inspired. And I think watch this space then, because that sounds like a really cool thing to be able to apply for and come and do. Very good. I think it's also interesting what you said about how looking for talent outside of geographies, it makes sense. It's the same sort of argument that is being had in all sorts of environments like higher education institutions, where, you know, if they're trying to build startups, looking for talent for those startups outside of just within the university, so not only working with their students or alumni or staff, makes sense, because it's very unlikely you'll find the very best person amongst that group. It's quite likely they'll be outside of that group. Same thing with big corporates. It's quite likely they'll find the best people outside of their own talent pool, and why not the same for geography? So I agree, it's the same. There are, though, as you said, really management challenges, and actually remote working and the difficulties around it come down to good management practice, I think, and you described some of it there about decision making. And I suppose for a small startup like ARC and Ufractionate, there's going to be challenges around you know, spreading yourself too thin or having that global reach. But where do you see you guys? What's your vision for sort of 5 years from now? How do you want ARC to look in 5 years, Yo?
Yeah, thanks, Jack. So I think it's going to be, it should be a very busy 5 years for us. And as long as I'm busy, that means we are growing. So that's a good parameter for us. But just in general, I think our challenge is to find the right ratio of decentralization and distribution. So like, I totally agree with what Dom was saying, and also in other way. So a lot of, like, you know, water, food, energy, all these like supply chain has been dominated by the centralized model. I know it's easier. Sometimes it's more resilient and cheaper cost. So I totally agree with some of the parts should be stay as centralized. But at the same time, I know there is a losses and risks to rely on to centralized model. So that's sort of like where we motivated ourselves to start a small distribution model of food production. So we don't say, you know, we are the alternative. So, you know, forget about centralized model, everything should be distributed. We wouldn't say that. We are talking about 900 billion people in 2030, and we need proteins for them. So we will try to find the right ratio to balance the global supply chain in terms of, especially in seafood, to balance the centralized model of production and the decentralized model. So that's where our challenge is. And in 5 years, we would like to move forward a little bit to achieve that.
That's fantastic. We're running really short of time, so I'm going to hand over to Monika in just 1 second. But my vision for your company, ARC, is to see one of your units in every supermarket car park, every pub car park, and right outside my flat where I live in my car park, so that I can eat fresh prawns out of your units and buy them in the local supermarket. That's my vision. Monika, really quickly, because Michael's panicking because we're getting up to 11 o'clock. Could you just give us your vision for where you want to be in sort of, you know, roughly 5 years?
Absolutely, I'll try to be quick. I mean, our vision remains the same. We would like to be a global provider of liquid particle separation instrument, and we are working very hard to be able to get there. I mean, obviously, we are still in the scale-up phase. We are not, supplying yet to the different markets, but we're already having those pilots. Let's say in Japan, we're doing tests in Canada, so we have instruments already traveling with us all over the world, to be honest. As you were saying, to not spreading ourselves too thinly, we are very much looking into potential partnering, so JDAs and licensing of our technology to the big, instrument producers. This is something at the part of the strategy for sure. So again, if everybody in the audience would like to open that kind of conversation, we would be more than happy to have it.
Well, thank you. And I know Michael will be able to connect anyone who does want to have those conversations. Now, it falls to me now, having got very close to the end point, to say thank you all very much indeed. Thank you. Good discussion and good vision for the future. I'm really excited to see it all progress. Michael, over to you, and I'll shut up.
Thank you so much, Jack. Now I'm not panicking anymore, so all good. Okay. So first of all, thank you so much, Jack, again for your moderation, as well as all the panelists. I think it was very, very interesting topic, and I think all of the audiences here actually managed to learn a lot from the discussion between all the panelists today. So in terms of today's session, this will be the end of it. And I hope everyone, all the audiences here today, had a good insight about what kind of collaboration, what kind of opportunities could we actually provide through collaboration between UK and Japan. And this is actually, we think that this is actually a first step for us to connect UK and Japan ecosystem. I think Mr. Max, as well as I mentioned, that we'll be starting a program with Tech Nation very soon. So for UK startup, please do be excited about it for our announcement on that program as well. And then for other audiences, maybe Japanese startups, Japanese big corporates, please do let us know if you are interested in certain topic about connection to UK as well. We have the contacts written here, and we actually have a very, very simple, very quick 5 seconds questionnaire here as well to actually share about your interests. And maybe in future, when we Leave a Nest UK conducts different kinds of programs related to UK and Japan, we'll be able to share the right program information to you as well. So it would be great at the end of the event if you can actually maybe take a screenshot or so to give us a kind of interest form feedback as well. So with that, I would like to end today's session, and I would like to thank once again to everyone who has been attending here, all the audiences who has been here, as well as all the speakers who has given a very, very insightful presentation as well. So thank you again for everyone, and we'll see you soon. Maybe in Japan or maybe in UK, since the border is open. So now I guess we can now travel. Now we can actually meet together face to face and maybe discuss in more details as well. So thank you again, and thank you so much for joining today. Thank you. Bye-bye.